Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another video. Body game and masculinity. Body game and masculinity. Now, I'm known for talking about body game, and on Fridays I've been talking about masculinity. Body game is very important, not for the aesthetics, not for the aesthetics of masculinity, but because you can get some guys, they can look muscular and all of that, and they ain't very masculine. No, because of the mechanics of getting into body game. That's very important. I've talked about that before, and I'm going over it again today. See, one of the things with body game is you got to go into a gym, or if you don't want to, you got to go into some calisthenics. Whatever you go into, you got to stay with it. That builds masculinity because you got to have willpower, you got to have discipline. Things like that builds masculinity. Just getting into body game itself builds masculinity because you have to have discipline, willpower, whatever. You gotta stick with something. Like say you want to bench press 300 pounds or something. You gotta stick with it. You can't just say, oh, I'm just gonna bench press 300 pounds or something. It don't work that way. I wish it did work that way. No, you gotta have the willpower. You gotta have the discipline in order to do that. Or if you say you don't want to get into the gym, you could say there ain't nothing wrong with that. And I said that several times. You could say, well, you know what? In order for me to build masculinity, in order for me to build it, I'm going to do so many push-ups a day. I'm gonna do 100 push-ups a day. Or I'm going to run a certain amount of blocks every day. That's also masculinity because what is it? It's discipline. You know, in civilized cultures that had a rites of passage, and they would have the young boys do certain things. That was to build their masculinity. And this is very important. This is very important. You know, it's, like I say, I've always said, build body game ain't just to get women, though it does help. But it's also to build you up. Like if you building, okay, like say you, in the most common thing of body game, building muscles, building your body, you have to be disciplined. You gotta have willpower. You have to stick with it because it's not going to happen overnight. You gotta have masculinity and discipline and everything just to stay with it. You gotta stay with it for a while. You know, it might be a year before you build up any difference. It's definitely going to be a few months. You gotta have the discipline to stay with that. You gotta stick with it. You can't just go out and just do a little bit and think, oh wow, this ain't doing anything for me. I wish it was that simple. No, you gotta stick with it. When you talking body game, you gotta go with it. You gotta like hit the gym. You gotta hit those calisthenics. You gotta do those routines. And you know what? Doing those routines, doing whatever you're doing for body game, it definitely is not going to help you right away. You might not notice anything. You might have to work on it a bit. But that's body game right there. That's masculinity. See, one thing with masculinity is you're going to have a goal and you're going to stick with it. And you know what? It's not always going to be an easy goal. Sometimes it's not going to be a pain-free goal. No, you're going to have to like lift. You're going to have to like stick with something. You're going to have to run that distance. Whatever you think. You know, even in martial arts, you're going to have to train. Whatever you train your body with, whatever the case, you got to stick with it. That's very, very, very important. I can't emphasize that enough. You know, but you know what? After you've done it, after you've been doing it, it's a great thing. Let me say that again. It's a great thing because you're sticking with something, and you gotta do it. You gotta do it. And you gotta do it. You gotta stick with it. You gotta go with it and everything. But I'm gonna tell you what, you do get a reward. You do get a reward after you've been doing it for a long time. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. Yeah, and it's going to be some pain. You know what? It's going to be some days you don't feel like working out. But see, part of masculinity is to keep going even when you don't feel like it, even when you don't want to do it, And you're not going to want to do it. I mean, shoot, working out 5 days a week, 6 days a week, running, you're going to feel tired. There's going to be days where somebody might come up to you and say, oh, you don't need to do it today. And, you say, no, I got to stick with it because part of body game, part of masculinity, not even just a body game, because the body game's creating it, but part of masculinity is sticking with something, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're tired, even when you're worn out, That's one thing with lifting or calisthenics or whatever you want to do, however you going to approach body game. That's part of it is you're gonna have to do it no matter what. Like people, have been very open about having a stroke about this time last year, close to this time last year, right? I told you I couldn't even walk or something. I had to stick with it. I've had to stick with it. I've had to lift, I had to walk, do whatever just to get back to where I'm at now. And it wasn't easy at all. But see, that's part of body game. That's part of masculinity. You're going to do stuff you don't like. And not even just a physical thing. Maybe it could be a mental thing that you have to do. A mental thing that you have to get into. That's very important. So that's the one thing, body game. Body game's a great teacher. It's a great teacher. Because I've said before, everybody's not going to get that super cut thing. But it teaches you a whole lot. It teaches you how to go through pain. It teaches you how to master pain. It teaches you how to keep going no matter what, no matter how you feeling. It's very important. It is very, very important. So you got to stick with it no matter what, all right? So anyway, that's all I have. And I want y'all to think about that, all right? And I'll get back with y'all later. Peace and blessings.